Do you want to be able to do insane AoE damage as well as maintain single target damage and have incredible CC and even some cool RP elements to make your playthrough as thorough as possible? Then I got the wizard build guide for you. What's up, World Streamer? Back in the video, we're checking out all things Baldur's Gate 3. Okay, so let's just jump right into the build. We'll jump into the spell stuff. We'll go from level 1. And this is all the way to level 8, and I've played all the way to level 8 on Tactician mode, on the hardest mode and the hardest difficulty. Played all the way through. I've beat many bosses and some of the hardest bosses in the game. Not going to showcase those because I don't want to give off too many spoilers. Most of the gameplay footage is going to be shown from early Act 1 stuff, but it's just to showcase that there is stuff there. I'll also showcase some of the other abilities out of combat so that you can just kind of see it and how it works, as I don't want to give too many spoilers in this video, but I also want to showcase the guide. Okay, so let's just jump right into the build, and obviously we're going to take Wizard. Now our cantrips is exactly the same from my last build video. These came out incredible. I'm so happy that I picked these and these were my choices. I really liked Friends. It's so good to have doubled conversations. Again, if you are playing on Tactician mode, I wouldn't use this on guards, specifically guards, because they will accuse you and then they can go into attack and become hostile. It's kind of like more so for Tactician and doesn't really matter until later areas, so I wouldn't worry about this too much, but it is really good to use and it's incredibly strong conversation. Shocking Grasp, also incredible, great at melee damage, great for escapes, does really good damage surprisingly. It's like, in fact, I'm finding myself just using Shocking Grasp. If a mob is within my melee range, I might as well, because I can go up to him, I can Shocking Grasp and get away. Now if it does fail, there's a bit of leniency there with that, but it is really strong and does a lot of damage for what it is. Also Bone Chill. Now if you're not going Necromancy, maybe don't use Bone Chill. You could probably go with Firebolt or Ray of Frost, or even Poison Spray. Maybe on the range is not that good, so I would definitely go either Ray of Frost or Firebolt, but I'm definitely sticking with Bone Chill. This is really good in the later areas, as this is going to provide essentially preventing the mobs from healing. It's really good in the later areas. I also do want to preface that I'm not going to go through too many spoiler stuff. All the gameplay footage is going to be showcased in the earlier areas. However, I have beaten some of the hardest bosses probably in the game by far, and I've done it on Tactician mode, and so there's a few in there I wish I could showcase, but I just don't want to showcase spoilers in this just yet. Maybe in my next updated guide I'll have a little bit more into Act 2 and things like that. In any case, we'll go Bone Chill and then we'll move on to our spells. Here's a big one that I wish I didn't take. I had no idea that the Ultimate Edition came with Disguise Self, so we are going to get rid of Disguise Self. I would probably get rid of Sleep. It's not that good. It's decent early on, but once mobs have more than 24 HP, and if you are in Tactician mode, they typically do, it's not very good. So I'm going to get rid of Sleep as well. I never found myself ended up using it. I am going to take Shield, which is absolutely incredible. So good. It's so strong early on, and it's good in the later levels. In fact, I think I've barely ever found a mob that has been able to hit me through this ability. It's so good. It's a reaction. It's very strong. I 100% recommend this spell. Also, we're going to take Feather Fall. The reason why Feather Fall is so good is there's a lot of areas that we need to get to, and they kind of will either down us or do a lot of damage. So I would definitely recommend Feather Fall, as that's a really good ability. If you wanted to, you could go Sleep. If you wanted to, you could go Thunder Wave or Tasha's Hideous Laughter, although I'd wait couple later levels for that one. Most of the stuff here is not that good. There's Ice Knife you could definitely swap out for Magic Missile if you wanted to. This does some pretty good damage here, but I'm going to keep everything the same here, as these are my core abilities and what I really like to play. Now onto abilities here. Now we could take out 2 on Dex and go 2 into Wisdom. This will help with some conversation stuff. However, I did like to have it in Dex. Dex actually I actually enjoyed having it in Dex instead of Wisdom. I feel like Wisdom isn't that good for us. It's not really, we're obviously focusing on Int. We're going to keep it at 17 Int also, because there is an item in the game, not really a spoiler item, but there is an item in the game that allows you to increase your ability point by 1, and you can select any of these, and we are going to use that to get 20 in our Int. So we'll leave it at that. We'll go back into Dexterity. However, if you wanted to switch out the Dexterity to Dexterity, I saw some comments on my last video, go ahead and throw that into Wisdom instead, so we'll have the 12 Wisdom. Charisma, again, not very good for us. This is mostly for Warlocks, Sorcerers, and that of the like, not for us, so we're going to keep it as this. This is my go-to setup. This is what I like. Also, my skill proficiencies don't matter very much, but Arcane, History, Investigation, and Insight, if you want to copy those, you can, but these are all up to you. These are playstyle, mostly playstyle. Moving on to level 2, this is your major decision here. There are a few choices here that are actually decent, I think. Evocation's really good for AoE stuff and not damaging your allies. There's also some stuff here with Abjuration if you wanted to for more damage mitigation, although I don't think you need it. I'm going to go Necromancy. Super fun to play. You have a ton of minions. You can kind of just run around and do what you got to do. And this really picks up in the later levels. It's not going to be that good early on. You're really not going to find yourself having much stuff early on, but it is insanely good. It also has some healing aspects here with the subclass features. We're going to go into spells, and for our cantrips, we will go ahead and select either Ice Knife if you want some more damage stuff you could swap out for. However, I would more than likely take either, because we're going to find scrolls for all this other stuff, I would go ahead and go into Tasha's Hideous Laughter if you wanted to. You could kind of get some stuff here with that. We also do kind of find Chromatic Orb somewhat early, but you can't take this as well. This is a really, really, really good ability. Tasha's Hideous Laughter is going to be good for us early on in the early Act 1 stuff. I didn't like Fog Cloud or any of these other stuff. Most of this other stuff is not that good. We're not going to use these two because we get Misty Step later. In my opinion, that's just a better ability. Ray of Sickness is also actually pretty good, but you can actually get a staff that has it on there, and so you don't really need it. And it is in Act 1, so you can get that Ray of Sickness stuff if you wanted to. Thunder Wave's another really good one to push back enemies and allies. But since we're not really utilizing anything really here aside from, maybe Ice Knife could be a good damage ability, I would take this or Charm Person. We're going to go Charm Person for some RP stuff. That way, if we want to use it in charisma checks, we can, and it will help with our playthrough. Now, for our prepared spells, of course, we're not going to have any of this stuff, which I have already unlocked. So we're going to go back to our level 1 prepared spells. I'm going to go with Shield, and that's going to be what we're preparing at level 1. Or level 2, sorry, rather. Now, moving on to level 3, there are some abilities here and some stuff here that's actually really, really good to use. Like Knock is incredible, so you don't have to be using your supplies. However, I'd wait for a later level to get Knock unless you think you need it early on. We do get a ton of supplies early, so we're going to go ahead and get Scorching Ray, which is just absolutely incredible, and Cloud of Daggers. I found these to be great. This is what I use. This is my main combo. I tried swapping for some other stuff, but honestly, we're not taking any other concentration spell for now. Cloud of Daggers is really strong. It's super strong. And so is Scorching Ray. You could also take, again, you could take Shatter, but you might get multiple ticks with this ability here, instead of where Shatter, you only get the 1 damage off the bat. Whereas here, you get multiple ticks of this damage, especially if you keep them in melee range. A lot of times you can keep them in melee range, and you can also kind of position your people around, so they have to stay in that melee range there. They can't move out of the Cloud of Daggers, and if they do, they also take a hit from your melee. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with this. Really good positioning. Cloud of Daggers is a must in my opinion, so is Scorching Ray. When we come into here, we will get rid of these two. We'll take Scorching Ray, Cloud of Daggers. Now, I did also take Find Familiar. However, what you can do, and what I found out is that you can put Find Familiar on your bar, then you can cast Find Familiar, and I'll show you that right now. So we'll go ahead, we'll put Find Familiar on here really quickly. We'll take off Shield, that way we can switch it on. We'll go ahead and take, again, you're not going to have these spells. These are all from me leveling up like crazy earlier in some scrolls that I've used. Those are actually the scrolls that I did find and use. So we'll go here, we'll leave out from 4, and what you'll see here is we have Find Familiar. We can go ahead and cast it, and we'll just put any of them down. Put the Raven down. Now we can actually and you see I have more because of my int. Now we can actually unprepare the spell and then put our shield on, and our Find Familiar is still there. That's why I really like this spell. It's really good. I didn't know it did this at first, but now I'm finding it incredible. You're probably not going to use Find Familiar after a certain point, or if you find certain things, you might not use this Find Familiar or this version of Find Familiar anymore, but it is really, really good at the start. And as I said, you could take it off your bar. Now there is Scratch. It's a dog. I don't know exactly where I found it, but this is what I use mostly now, as it doesn't require a spell slot, and it's just an action that I can cast as soon as I'm done. You also can find things around the world and stuff like that, so we do use Scratch instead of the actual Find Familiar. However, this is still good early on, and you're not going to find Scratch until way later, I believe. And so we will still use Find Familiar, and then the fact that we can take it off our bar is even better. Moving on to level 4 here, we are going to go in our cantrips. We are going to take Acid Splash. Really good ability, AoE damage, and it's a free cast. Yeah, it's kind of hard not to take this one. We're going to take Acid Splash. It's really good. We'll come on to our spells here. I am going to take Knock. I did not find a scroll for this, so I do suggest you take it. It's really good. Makes it so you can open up anything. You can just open up doors. You can open up chests. You can open up whatever. It's a really good ability. It's very, very strong. And I would there's a few things here. I don't remember if I found Scroll of Blindness or not, but that's what I ended up taking. So it is a really good ability early on. It's very, very strong. If you didn't want to take Blindness, then uncheck Blindness, maybe come into Shatter. You could take more AoE damage here. really just isn't anything else. I did not like Magic Weapon. Thought Magic Weapon was terrible. Some of these other abilities are just not that good. Brave Enfeeblement's okay. Might be okay in certain scenarios. You could do Hold Person. However, if you're using Shadowheart, you don't really need it. Crown of Madness could be good too. Blur, you find a scroll for. Enlarge and Reduce, this is one I didn't take ever, and I never found a scroll for, so if you wanted to min-max there, you could take Enlarge and Reduce. However, we're going to go Blindness, as I do think this is a really good ability early on, and you're probably not going to find a scroll for it that early, so we'll go ahead and take that. Now for Prepared Spells, again, we'll come into here. We will take that Shield. We'll go ahead and slap on the Blindness there, and we should be good to go with that level here. We do have to pick our Fate, though, and then our ability improvement here. We are going to go into Intelligence. It's a really good one off the bat, and again, we are going to use that. If you do go to a certain area, I don't know if you guys want that, but if there's comments down below, I'll tell you the area you need to go to get the +1 on the 20 Intelligence here. But essentially, there's an area in the, I guess I'll just say it, in the southwest area of the map. There is an area that you can get the +1 to Intelligence. This is in Act 1. It's southwest area. Again, if you want to go there and explore that area, you will be able to get this 1 int, and you will be able to increase to a +20 int, which is absolutely insane for this class. You're going to get a lot of spell casting and a lot of spell slots. Now moving on to level 5, we are going to go into our spells here. We finally get some level 3 spell unlocks, and we get a ton of them. Fireball, absolutely a must here. It is so strong. It is too good not to pick. And then we're also going to go Counterspell. Everything else is just kind of mediocre. It's okay. Slow, I never found a scroll for. I found a scroll for Stinking Cloud. I found a scroll for Vampiric Touch. I found a scroll for Remove Curse, I do believe, or I may have taken it at a later level. I also found a scroll for Hypnotic Pattern. It's another decent one. I found a scroll for Gaseous Form and Grant Flight, but these were in the later levels. Feign, I also found a scroll for. I also found a scroll for Fear, and I do believe I found a scroll for Bestow Curse. The other one I didn't find a scroll for was Blink. So if you want to min-max there, get Blink, or maybe Remove Curse here. The rest I all found, or even Slow. But these two are kind of a must. Counterspell is just really good. You're going to see that it does a nice reaction attack. You're going to be able to block insane damage. And there's some really strong abilities that you do need to use Counterspell on. Fireball is just kind of hard not to take. It is too strong for AoE damage. Now for our prepared spells, we'll come into here. We don't have Glyph of Warding yet. Now, Glyph of Warding is really good. However, we will either get a scroll for it sometime early. If you do want to take Glyph of Warding instead of Fireball, you can. I don't see it on here, but I think maybe because I have the scroll already for it. Although I have the scroll for these and I just haven't used. But I have used the Glyph of Warding. And so if you do see Glyph of Warding on here, I do believe you do. You could take that over Fireball. However, we do get a scroll for it later, and you don't for Fireball, that I believe. Moving on here, we will slap on our 2 main abilities here. Again, these are really strong, so we'll go ahead and be using those. Moving on to level 6, we finally get our Necromancer abilities. We get some better summons here. This is why we didn't take Animate, because we get it on level 6. But moving on here, we are going to go ahead and take Blink, as I never found a scroll for this one. It's not really utilized, although I do keep it on my bar. It is kind of a cool concept. It's got a lot of stuff here, basically allowing you to not be harmed or seen. It's got some stuff there, and it's not a concentration spell for once. So it's really cool. Everything else here, I found a scroll for. I found a scroll for Hypnotic Pattern. I found a scroll for Lightning Bolt. Gaseous Form, I found a scroll for. This is good RP stuff. You probably won't find a scroll for this when you need to use this. So you could go here to slip through some smaller spaces. There are some stuff that you really want to slip through and kind of go in those smaller spaces. It can help with certain things. If you want to take that, you can. Again, Fear, we're not going to take because Shadow already has it. Bestow Curse, not very good. Feign's not very good. There's also a scroll for it that we can find. Scroll we can find for this. We can also find a scroll for Remove Curse. We can find a scroll for Slow. Stinking Cloud, very strong, but we can find a scroll for it. And Vampiric Touch, not very good, but we can also find a scroll for that. So I would go into Sleet Storm. I never found a scroll for this in my entire playthrough so far. So I would take Sleet Storm. Probably not going to use it, but because I want to min-max there, I will take it. However, for you, I would take Haste. I already have Haste used, so I would go ahead and take Haste there. Or if you haven't got Glyph of Warding yet, maybe switch off of Blink and take Glyph of Warding, or take Glyph of Warding here and get that on there. Although you can find a scroll for Glyph of Warding, that's why I haven't taken it. And so that was what I'd switch out there for. So I would take Glyph of Warding and Haste if you don't have those scrolls yet or don't feel like getting them. However, if you do have either Glyph of Warding or Haste, then just swap those out and then get Sleet Storm, as you will probably never find a scroll for that. So I've basically looted everything and never found a scroll, which is kind of insane. As for our prepared spells, we will go ahead and honestly eventually swap out Fireball, as Fireball we can get on a staff. so you won't need it anymore. And we'll take Glyph here and then probably Haste. This is kind of be my go-to setup for this level. However, it depends on if you have this staff or if you don't have certain things. You probably will still take Fireball. Although I do like Glyph of Warding as it's the same damage and it just provides literally any element that you want to use on it. So it's pretty strong. Hard not to take there. Because I don't like Haste, I will take Glyph of Warding instead, or essentially probably remove off Fireball eventually. But yeah, we'll leave that for now. There's some variants you can do there. Moving on to the big level 7. Now we finally get some level 4 spells. You are going to want to take Blight. It is so strong for single target. And we're also going to take Phantasma or Phantasmal. I found this one to be pretty good overall. We could take Conjure Element. These are 2 scrolls that I found, so we didn't have to technically take it here. If you already found those scrolls, you can skip it. I never found a scroll for Blight. I never found a scroll for Confusion, and I never found a scroll for Resilient Sphere. The rest you can find scrolls for, and I'll show you that I still have them. Greater Invisibility, I think I take next level, but I did find a scroll for it eventually. Dimension Door, I found a scroll. All these I found scrolls for. Could take Ice Storm, is also really good. But I would go ahead and take Phantasmal unless you have a scroll for it. If you already do have a scroll for it, this is really, really good in certain areas. I don't want to spoil anything, but essentially you're not going to be able to use this ability quite often. In the later or in the mid section of the game, you really won't be able to use this as much as you want. So you're going to have to be taking Phantasmal if you want that strong single target damage. So that's what I would take. However, if you have a scroll for it, then I wouldn't take it there. And instead I would take something like Confusion, Resilience Orb, or even Greater Invisibility. However, we do have a scroll for that. We also have a scroll for Fire Shield. Really good here if you don't want to go looking for scrolls. Take Fire Shield, it's also really good. For now, I'm just going to take Confusion since we don't have a scroll for it, and it's just a cool ability. Now here, we'll go ahead and kind of keep it as it is. However, I might switch out for our Animate. We do need Animate, but I do believe we get this as a kind of main-sided ability, but we'll throw it in there for now. And we'll keep it as it is. Glyph of Warding I do prefer over Fireball, so you could go in there, switch it out, take that instead. However, Fireball is really, really strong to keep on there, so this is kind of what I would do for the setup. And yeah, just to double preface, you do not need Animate on the scroll bar here. I was almost positive you didn't, but I just saw it on there for a second. We do have 2 additional slots here that you'll see when you get from doing the way the levels are, so you actually do get more than that. So you can add even Fireball back, you can even add Haste in here, or you could even have both Phantasmal or even Conjure Minor Element if you wanted to. However, the reason why I didn't want to take Conjure Minor Element is you only get 1 spell cast here, and we're gonna probably want to use this for this level. For me, I like to, because at 3 you'll see you only get 2 summons. You see right at my bar here, there's only 2 little checkmark things. At level 4, you get 4 summons, so that's why I prefer to use this over Conjure Element for now, since we only have the 1 ability or the one essential thing here. We're going to go ahead and take that instead, as we probably won't use any rank 4 abilities. We do have this one here that we can restore to, and so I prefer to have that over an Elemental Summon in my case. But yeah, that's essentially that part there. Moving on to level 8. Again, if you do not want to go looking for scrolls, if you don't want to go looking for scrolls at all, then I would probably take Greater Invisibility and maybe Fire Shield or even Stone Skin. Fire Shield seems really, really strong, especially for yourself. It does damage, and it protects you and gives you resistance to certain things. Very, very strong there. So if you don't want to go looking for scrolls, I would take those 2. If you already have scrolls and you've gotten scrolls, then your best bet here is to take the Autolyx Resonant Cube and Confusion, although I think Confusion's gone because I already have it. I already have it unlocked here, so we won't take it on this particular thing here. But everything else, I have a scroll for Polymorph, I have a scroll for Wall of Fire, Stone Skin, Dimension Door. So I would take, if you did need to, I would take Confusion there if you don't have it. It's another one that's kind of hard to find. Just to get it out of the way for now, we'll take Greater Invisibility, although again, I have a scroll for it. If you have the scroll for this stuff and you want to min-max, I would take Resonant Sphere, as well as maybe we have most of the problem is we have most of the stuff here. We have all Polymorph. I have the scroll. Go ahead and take Ice Storm. I don't think this one is that easy to find. We'll take it for now. We come down to feat. Now this is where this can get a bit tricky. If you take ability improvement, we already have 20 from that one item, so we don't need to go into feat anymore, in my opinion. There's also some stuff here. You could take a Lucky. Lucky's pretty cool mechanic. although I normally take this on the melee attack people. Lucky's a really cool mechanic, maybe even later on if we get more feats. What I ended up going with is Warcaster. That Warcaster is really cool. It allows me to make my abilities melee. So if there is an ability that I want to use and there is an enemy in my melee range, I am actually allowed to use any ability practically that won't let me use it in melee range. So I do like this one a lot. We also have a reaction spell that gives us some pretty cool stuff here. Again, you could take Lucky. There are some people that go into Warlock, Mage Initiate Warlock, and they go in here and they grab Eldritch Blast, and then whatever else you want. You could grab, like, you know, a Mage Hand. But I don't really find this to be that utilized. It also scales off Charisma, which we don't have a ton of unless you did the 12 Charisma. And the rest of the stuff here, like Arms of Hadar, not too bad here. This is a pretty decent one, but you got to be in melee range, and yeah, I don't really like that. You could also, most people take Hex here. Hex is cool. It's a cool concept. It's a concentration spell. I'm not a fan of Hex, so I don't use it. It is good for damage mitigation and things like that. You do have to kind of examine enemies and find out exactly what you need to hex them with, unless you know it, of course, off the top of your head. This is another ability here. This is what you could go with if you wanted to take this. Go right ahead. I'm going to take Warcaster. It's simple. It's clean. I don't have to overfill my bar with too many abilities that I already have, and so I like that for level 8. Now that should about cover it for the build overall. We'll go ahead and look through here what we have. We do actually have 2 extra slots here for different abilities, and so what I normally would put on here is Detect Thoughts. That's what we have here. Now, if you can't find a scroll for Detect Thoughts, I would take this in place of the level 2 stuff. If you didn't want to take maybe Arcane, you could take Detect Thoughts in place of taking like a level 4 thing, since we have so many scrolls, which I will showcase off in a second here. Also, I believe I got a scroll for See Invisibility. We could take something like Haste here, put this on our bar. More than likely, what I'll do is I'll put Blink, as I'm not really utilizing Haste. It's a concentration spell. I would rather have Cloud of Daggers out there. I'd rather have a bunch of other concentration stuff, and so I'm not really utilizing it. I'd rather have Phantasmal out there instead of the Haste, although Haste is really good, so most people are going to take it. So instead of Blink, we'll put on Haste. But yeah, it's just too many concentration spells for me. You can only utilize one at a time, so I'm not using it there. And then I'm constantly swapping out Blight for Phantasmal, as these are the 2 really, really strong abilities. Now, we do get 2 casts here, so we can get Conjure Elemental. This one, you'll find multiple scrolls of this. You'll find a ton of scrolls of Conjure Elemental. In fact, I'm going to show you my scrolls here now, and even my inventory. You see, I have a ton of scrolls. I have a lot of scrolls galore. There's so many here of everything: Burning Hands, Feathered Fall, Fly. Now, this is a 100% hand-picked playthrough. None of this stuff is added in or anything that, no mods or anything. This is 100% from what the game gives you, all these scrolls here, and you'll kind of see it on this board here. You see we have all of those. We have all the level 4 scrolls. We even have some level 5 stuff already. We have level 4 Dimension Door, like I talked about. We have the Fire Shield, like I talked about. Greater Invisibility, like I talked about. There's a ton of stuff here. Polymorph we already have. Stone Skin, again, also Wall of Fire, Vampiric Touch. We have everything. We have basically everything. So these are all the scrolls here. I'll probably have a list down below on all the scrolls that I found, including Conjure Mind Elemental, and also including a few of these here, like Haste I did find later on. Didn't really need to take it. I did find See Invisibility later on as well. Never found Find Familiar. Never found, I don't believe I ever found Tasha's Hidden Laughter, or maybe I did find Charm. However, they're pretty rare with some of this stuff. I did sell a few scrolls, or I did sell duplicates, so most of my duplicates I have. Mage Armor you find pretty frequently. Hypnotic Pattern you find pretty frequently. I've sold a lot of scrolls there. You even have Scroll of Fire here, but I don't know if I'd recommend taking that. Scroll of Fire Shield. You see, we have everything that I listed out. So if you are min-maxing and want to, here you can see all the scrolls here. Again, I will probably have a list of all these scrolls showcased down below, but that should about cover it for this video in this wizard guide on level 8. Now, I did want to keep this very, very genuine. I have played this all the way to level 8 on Tactician mode. So we are on Tactician mode. As you can see here, we are on Tactician mode. I've played all the way through on Tactician mode. And so if you are seeing anything that is, if you are seeing build guides of people that are like level 12 already or even higher, more than likely they either modded their character, they are not playing on tactician mode, so it's too easy already. They don't even really need to min-max. This is kind of like a min-max build to play on tactician mode. Now you'll have a ton of minions. As I said earlier, you have the 4 here. You could also take the Conjure Elemental. There's a bunch of stuff there that you could mix and match there, but overall that should cover it. Now I will cover the kind of opening routine here, which is essentially what you do at the beginning. As soon as you spawn in, this is kind of like your go-to right at the camp. You're going to spawn in 4 corpses. I won't do that here since we're right here and I don't want to give up any spoilers. I don't have any things around to do this. So we'll go ahead and we'll spawn in 4 of these. Once we have those 4 in, then we'll go ahead and use our Arcane to restore the Arcane 4 ability. And then once we go into there, we will go into our Mage Armor. We'll apply Mage Armor. After applying Mage Armor, then we'll go ahead and spawn in Scratch. Once Scratch is spawned in, we'll switch over to Shadowheart. Once Shadowheart is here, then we will go into her animation, which I do have an item for, which is really cool. It's this Circle of Bones here, which basically the allied of the animated stuff will become resistant to bludgeoning, slashing, and piercing damage. This is really good, and she also gets an action cast of Animate. So we're going to use that. We'll animate another skeleton for a ranger. Could go zombie if you want. And then we'll use aid on everything. We'll probably use a level 4 aid. And then everything has a ton of health. And it's just really, really good to utilize. So that's kind of the setup there and the kind of cast that you will do at the very beginning as your prep work after camp. Now that should about cover for the build guide video. If you enjoyed, I'd like to like and subscribe. And until the next one. Deuces.